a lot of high performers are carbon fiber. Carbon fiber has this really weird characteristic. There's no actual signs, and then it just snaps. You need to make sure people have a life. Like work can't be there. Burnout's kind of like a power plant. A power plant is never meant to go down ever.
Yeah.
Like it takes forever for a power plant to get spun back up because it's just not built to go to zero. You never want to make it sound like it's their fault because it's not. But it's just like, hey, you've been crushing it. Why don't you take Thursday and Friday, go hang with the wife, go drink some whiskey. You're awesome, and we'll just crush it on Monday. That can like really save the power plant going down, where these people are going to be out for a week because they're just going to be the Walking Dead.
Hey, Rabah, what's up, man? How are you?
Dude, I'm doing good. Just watching you cook. I see the latest batch of ads. I don't know if it was right for you to go so hard in the paint and embarrass everybody else, but yeah, man, life's good. Could be worse. Fermat's doing really well. Actually, I don't know when this drops, but I'm taking a think week. So I'm pulling a Bill Gates, and I'm taking all of next week off. So
really staying home, traveling,
staying home because I need a break.
You've been traveling way too much, huh?
And I keep doing like, okay, I'm going to take a vacation. And then I was just in Morocco for 2 weeks, like 2.5 weeks, Morocco, Spain kind of thing. And it's just, I just need a break. You know what I mean? Like I don't need a vacation. I just need to like reset my life. So I got a personal trainer. I'm going to get my cooking back. So I'm really excited. It's early stage startups. I mean, you know this too, but early stage is just it's a grind sometimes, man.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what we're talking about here today. Like we've both, I think, worked at startups our whole career. And with that can come a ton of stress, can come long days, can come, really lofty expectations and goals. And, one thing I've seen in myself, I know that no one wants to hear management advice from a 28-year-old kid trying to figure it out. But my perspective from being an employee, like when I've been at jobs that I hated, Q4 sucks.
Yes.
And like we get into the thick of it and I'm panicky and I'm looking for other jobs.
Yes.
And I'm like trying to do the bare minimum, but also got to hit numbers and been super miserable. Then on the flip side, fortunately, where I'm at now is great. I love it here. And in this Q4, I feel like I can just lock in, put my head down, not worry about the future, not worry about anything. Just make sure I can be doing my best work. And I think that's so valuable and something that gets overlooked a lot when we're talking about kind of, planning to build a big e-com brand.
Yeah.
So from your perspective, someone who's got some years in management on me, what do you kind of try to do as you approach these high stress times to make sure that your team's well taken care of?
Yeah, I think this is kind of a bit of like, no, of course, dummy. But you really need to set yourself up for success. Like thinking that you're going to build Rome in a day is not great. With that being said, when you have, because like tax season for us is different in the B2B world than D2C, where our tax season is more like January to May, June. That's when most people are going to buy SaaS software. So Q4 is not as big for us, but the intensity is the same. And so there's a couple of things there. One, I am a big proponent of systems and autonomy. So I know it's challenging sometimes when you're in a D2C brand, and I'm just not a huge fan of junior hires. I think that they actually cost more in the net than somebody that is going to be able to be talented and move forward. Not to say that you don't need to layer people, but the way I like to run my team is basically have a bunch of, generals, lieutenants. And then if they need extra resources, I can resource them, but I'm only really interacting with that general lieutenant layer. And I don't mean that in like an elitist way. It's just, that's my preferred management style. But what that allows you to do is give people autonomy. And then I have a whole thing called Marketing OS. Shameless plug, be launching it soon. And it's basically this Notion Slack system where I can keep up with everything. And then everybody knows, okay, cool, I'm going to start a project. Those projects will have tasks. I can put the contract here. The expenses go here. And so there's complete visibility. So I can do a lot of asynchronous stuff. The other thing is you really want to keep a pulse on your people. And so I do one-on-ones with all my direct reports, and I have a structure. So biggest win, biggest opportunity. What are you looking forward to? It doesn't have to be work related. Just, these are humans that you're dealing with, and
Yeah.
people, it's very hard to separate work life from life. Like, I think it bleeds in, so you really want to make sure people are there. And then the last thing I would say, so set yourself up for success, get the right people in the roles, pay if you need to, if you can economically
Yeah.
afford it. Do your one-on-one check-ins, because it's better to nip it in the bud than like have a festering wound that just starts to permeate and make a cancer across the team. And then the last thing is, dude, reward output and effort. So a lot of times, if things don't always shake out in the right way, but it was a great bet and it just, it was an 80% chance of winning, 20% chance of losing, still reward that. And so
Yeah.
you want to reward people. I'm a very big ask for forgiveness, not for permission kind of thing, beg for forgiveness, not for permission.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to that autonomy thing. So that's kind of how I see it throughout. But I will say, I'll give you another really good framework. There's something called the 4 S's. And so when you hire somebody, there's 4 things that are going to be heuristics of basically, just, is somebody happy and are they going to stay, or are they shopping type of thing.
Mm.
The first thing is story. Are they bought into the mission? Are they bought into the goal? Like, you have to be proud and excited and really into the story of your brand, your product. If that's not there, and that's not your role as a marketing leader, that's the role of the CEO. Like, they have to have the reality distortion field. They have to be able to sell people. That is not your job to rah, rah, rah the troops. Your job is to make the rah, rah, rah louder. The second is structure. People really want, especially high performers, they really want control over their day. So you can't be pulling them into things last minute, all these things. Like, let people cook. You need to have
Yeah.
some structure around their days. Like, yes, maybe you have an L10 or some sort of like set things, but you can't just have a smattering of calls, especially if you're remote. It's incredibly disruptive. You don't
Yeah.
want that at all. Next is stimulation. So you want something, there's something called Flow by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, really brilliant guy. There's videos on it. You can figure it out. But basically, a flow state needs 3 things. You need the task to be a little bit harder than your skill set, but not too hard. Because if it's too hard, you'll quit because you get frustrated. And if it's too easy, you get bored and you quit. So you want it just above what their skill set can do. The second thing is you want to really clearly define goal. And the third thing is you want a really tight feedback loop so they can understand, are they succeeding or failing? So that is stimulation. You want to have your employees stimulated. And then the last thing is social. Like, do your employees have a best friend at work? For better or worse, people are going to spend a lot of time at work. And if they don't have a best friend or a really deep social connection at work, that's usually a pretty big red flag that this person is shopping or they're not happy. And so outside of all that structure, I run through those 4 S's to ensure that my team is really where it needs to be. And, sometimes you want to make sure, if there is divergence between individual incentives and business incentives, empower that person, like, okay, where do you want to go? Okay, if it's not here, that's fine, but at least I can get 100% output for you while you're shopping, or I can help you
Right.
make the next move. I've just never been into the crabs in the bucket type of mentality where it's like, oh, you're leaving, so that's personal against me. No, like,
Right.
some people, hey, they want to elevate themselves and do something else. And if there's not a career path that excites them at the current role, then, like, do you want a grumpy person, or do you want somebody that's going to die on the shield up until they leave? And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I see it.
Awesome. Dude, you touched on a lot there. I want to double click into a few things you touched on. That kind of like no junior talent rule. That's how I've liked to build teams as well. I would rather do something myself than hire an employee that's maybe fresh out of college for 55K that isn't going to be bought into the mission,
No.
that probably doesn't see a huge growth opportunity, that's probably going to leave in 24 months. Like, I would way rather just be like, I'll just do it until I can come up with enough stuff to justify a role for a more senior level of talent. Is that kind of how you approach that too?
I think it's so perfectly put, more eloquent than I could have put it. I say I only hire when I have pain.
Yeah.
I never hire in the future, because I'm not as much as I resemble Zoltron, I am not a palm reader. Like, I don't know what's coming in the future,
Yeah.
but I know, hey, these stressors are really big. The other thing, it helps you shape the role. So if you have kind of an
100%.
ambiguous thing where it's like, oh my gosh, dude, I just am perpetually, the podcast is going great. These videos are starting to pop off, but it's just taking too much of my time. Okay, I need to go get a killer video editor. Or
Right.
hey, I'm amazing at creative, but it's just I need to work on the business, not in the business. I can do this. And so I find it's way easier to not only scope the role, but also go make a case to finance where it's just like,
Yep.
hey, this is why I need the money. This is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to own. Here's what their KPIs are going to be. Here's how I see them fitting into the team. So I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, again, running a business is very much so like a relationship. As long as you and your boss are happy, that's really all that matters. So again, take all this with a grain of salt, but that's my preferred style. I will say there's certain verticals that this doesn't apply to as much because they are, for better or worse, headcount verticals. So for example, in B2B SaaS sales,
Yeah, you need
you
bodies.
need butts and seats.
Yeah.
It sucks. You know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
is what it is. Whereas marketing is not an org like that, where I would rather have 3 to 5 killers than
Yeah.
a one head, one right hand person, and then 20 scrubs. Like, but again,
Yeah.
that's just my personal preference. But I think outside of kind of customer success and sales, my preference is not to hire for bodies. It's to hire for talent when I have
Yeah.
pain,
Agreed.
and then kind of move the org forward from there.
Yeah, I love that. I've unfortunately done it both ways, where like early on in my career, hired for bodies, because of that, didn't have the budget to pay anyone
Yep.
well. I also was not getting paid well at the
Yeah.
time, so that didn't help either. But yeah, no, I'm with you. I'd rather two guys or gals that are absolute killers at what they do, pay them well, and like even if we all end up doing stuff that's like below our pay grade, I'm like, who cares? I'd rather us all make more money. I'll run our Facebook ads. I don't care. Like, and I'd rather just do it all, do it incredibly well, and all of us take home big bags of cash.
Exactly right. And you said something there that really is important is I don't think there should be a I can't take out the trash. I don't like that on
Right.
my team. But with that also being said, you need to understand, like, you want your people working. There's a phrase, horses for courses. You want to use the right horse for the right course. And you want your people working on the things that, one, fire them up and are really dead center in their kind of zone of genius.
Mm,
So just because I found what the most challenging part is, and it's kind of a bit paradoxical, but when you get really multifaceted killers, everybody starts to ask for their time. And so as you're you being the leader, you being the boss, you being the head of the department, you really have to do a good job of shielding those people. Because a lot
mm,
of times, too, those people are kind of, me included, are obligers where they say yes to everything and then they start burning out. Versus like, okay,
mm.
cool. Here's the priorities. Here's your rocks. If anybody is asking you to do anything outside of this, say, hey, this is awesome. Here's my current priority stack. Could you go talk to Nate and figure it out? Because this is what,
Yeah.
and my team, I get to deploy my team in whatever way I want. And that's why you're paying me the money. And so that's one thing is when you do hire really talented people, I've found it can be a bit of a pitfall in the sense that everybody wants to use them. And you need to make sure that they are working on the things that are, one, aligned with your goals and business model. And like, you're the head of marketing. I'm saying this through the lens of marketing because I've never run any
Yeah.
other org. But you're running towards those goals. And that's the whole point. Like the soldiers can't question the general. Like the general has
Yeah.
to have the plan, the soldiers follow the plan, and then if other generals try and come in, you need to respectfully bring it up and say, hey, this is how I'm going to deploy my resources. If you don't agree, let's talk about that, but stop going around me and asking for resources. If you need resources for marketing, come to me and I can tell you what my priority stack is. And then, because the biggest thing that I've seen with, I don't want to say distant CEOs, but people that aren't connected, is they think if they have more things, your plate gets bigger. Or just because
Yeah.
they have more ideas, you have more bandwidth. It's like,
Right.
dude, I'm already operating at 99.9% of
Yeah.
output. And it's fine. It's your boat to drive. You can tell me, but go to them with your current priority stack and what everybody's working on, saying, okay, hey, you need to get the best relationships I've had when managing up is getting them into a trade-off mindset
Yep.
where, okay, that's cool. We can do X, but that means Y and Z are going to be late or pushed back because X is going to push them out. And so that's one thing I would say managing up is also not only managing down,
So
but managing
important,
up is
dude.
a really big deal.
So I think that's like one of the most valuable career skills that never gets talked about. Like if you don't learn how to communicate to leadership effectively, and like in my career, I've done that the wrong way.
Yep.
Like I've done the thing of like, hey, if you want me to do X, I can't do Y and Z, but I've done it with attitude and I've done it in a
Yeah.
shitty way because I
Yeah.
think we should be doing X and Z instead of
Yeah.
Y.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's like such a big thing to keep everyone's stress level down. Like if
Oh, yeah.
you're an employee listening to this, you don't want your boss pissed off in Q4 either. And I think just like keeping that open line of communication, acknowledging that like, yes, general, at the end of the day, it's your call. I just am obligated to let you know this what it's gonna, cost us either financially or with bandwidth.
Is exactly right, man. It's exactly right. Now, here's a little pro tip for all the people out there that aren't the boss. One, I have a thesis that unless you're a founder or owner, the only thing you care about is making your boss happy. And then two, the fastest way for your idea to get greenlit is make it theirs.
Yeah. Yep.
And they're like, "Oh my gosh, that is
Yeah.
such an interesting idea, Nate. What do you think?" So, do you think we could kind of run with that in
Yeah.
marketing? Because I think it's a really brilliant idea, even though you proposed it.
Yeah.
And so, there, yeah, dude, for better or worse, I mean, and you kind of want like a little bit of ego and visionary and crazy in the CEO. Like your CTO
You
and
need it. Yeah.
your CFO. Well, I say CTO because B2B, but for you guys, for us, it's CTO and CFO or head of finance. Those are the two tethers to reality. I personally prefer having a crazy philosopher style CEO where they're just visionary in the weeds, just crazy, saying then let's go to the moon kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And then you're like, that's interesting, but maybe we go to Texas first and then we
Right.
can go to somewhere else. And so,
Yeah.
but so spot on, man. I mean, from B2B SaaS, because attribution, as much of a quagmire as it is in D2C, is much more linear. You can kind of get a picture of it. High ticket B2B SaaS, dude, is an absolute just snake pit. And that's
Yeah.
one of the hardest things as a CMO in B2B SaaS is to be able to create narratives around your data to then go to your CEO or whoever you roll up to say, hey, here's how we're succeeding. Here's where the success is coming from. Go to the CFO, VP of finance, whatever, and say, hey, you need me to hit X amount of pipeline. I need Y amount of money for the budget. So very super spot on, Nate.
Yeah. Awesome. Now you mentioned burnout. Let's talk about it.
That's a thing.
Do you look out? Are there any like specific signs that are like telltale this employee is struggling? Is that something you uncover in one-on-ones, or is it more uncovered in their output, having issues?
So this is going to be person dependent.
Yep.
There's people that are, you're wearing that ugly Red Bull hat, but anywho, so there's a bunch of carbon fiber on F1 cars is the reason I'm bringing up his F1 hat. Some people are like carbon fiber. And why I say that is carbon fiber has this really weird characteristic. There's no actual signs and then it just snaps.
Yeah.
Whereas like wood will start to splinter, steel starts to bend. There's some semblance of like, oh shit, the system is too strained. A lot of high performers are carbon fiber where you have no idea what's going to actually snap it. So one-on-ones are really important. Getting people's vibes in the meeting. So not what they say, how they say it, their body language. People that start to have personality shifts where this is a happy-go-lucky, really fun person, and now they're like snippy, they're passive-aggressive. When people start acting not like the person that you interacted with at the base level is usually a big sign. And then two, just being proactive of I mean, obviously there needs to be blackout dates where it's like, hey, we can't take time off. But again, going back to setting yourself up for success, like you need to make sure people have a life. Like work can't be their life. And if they are just working all the time and they don't have any outlet, whether that is, again, social, they don't play video games, they don't have a hobby, anything like that, you can get to a place that is really hard. And the challenge with burnout, the way I like to describe it with people, because I've been through it multiple times, burnout's kind of like a power plant. A power plant is never meant to go down, ever.
Yeah.
Like, it takes forever for a power plant to get spun back up because it's just not built to go to zero. And so if you can catch that before in that, then it's great. And say, hey, just, you know what, Nate, you're crushing it. And I'll tell you what, let's just take Thursday and Friday off and let's just start hammering at it next week. You never want to make it sound like it's their fault, because it's not. But it's just
Right.
like, hey, you've been crushing it. Why don't you take Thursday and Friday, go hang with the wife, go drink some whiskey. You're awesome, and we'll just crush it on Monday. That can like really save the power plant going down, where these people are going to be out for a week because they're just going to
Yeah.
be the walking dead. So that's kind of how I see burnout, is that power plant analogy, and then really trying to get in front of it. Because the other thing is, these people can become cancerous,
Mhm.
where they just start back channeling and stuff. I hate this. I can't believe this happened, that.
Yep.
And like, it's not even
And then
because
it's over.
yeah, that then it gets a
yeah.
really, the only thing there is resets, where you just
Yeah.
get the team back together and say, hey guys, I know some shit hasn't been going the way we want to go to. Let's all just throw it out on the table, scream, go to a rage room and break some windows or something. And then can we reset? Because if not, then you're in a real world
Yeah.
of hurt, because you essentially, sorry for all the military analogies, but then you start to have a mutiny on your hands, where
Yeah.
the troops no longer respect the orders coming from the generals and things like that, and it can get
Yeah.
into some hard places.
Dude, I'm glad you mentioned kind of like proactivity in preventing burnout, because that's been my goal as a new manager. Like, I've transitioned from individual contributor to manager in the last 5 years. And dude, first of all, it's hard.
It's
Like,
very hard, dude.
it's a new muscle that I've never worked out. And it's hard, but what we've been trying to do to kind of like stay ahead of it is super clear expectations with everyone on our team. Like,
Yes.
hey, quarters 1 and 3, live your life. Like,
Yes.
go do whatever you want. We're doing 4-day work weeks all summer.
Yep.
And it's been great, and we all love it. And Ryan's in Italy right now, and Chris was in France a couple weeks ago, and I took a week off, and like, we know that, like, hey, now's the time to do that.
Correct.
Because then Q2 and Q4 for us, Father's Day and Christmas, is the only time we make a ton of money. So
Yep.
we've been doing that. And then another thing that I think founders are going to be pissed that I'm saying this, I like to give raises before Q4.
Ooh, I like that.
Kind of going back to what you mentioned about like reward input, not necessarily outcomes, where like, yeah, I guess Q4 depend, it makes up a ton of revenue for the year for us. Like, that's kind of a predictor of how much we can pay people next year. But I also know that I've had people working for me all year that are killing it.
Yes.
We're growing by 60% this year already.
Yes.
We can afford to give a raise right now.
I love that.
And that is something to me where it's like, one, inflation's insane, out of control. I don't know
Yeah.
how most Americans are surviving right now. So like, relieve financial stress when you can.
Yes.
And then two, I think it's kind of a hedge against like, hey, don't go look for another job. Like, we got you. We want you a part of this team. I want you locked in for the next 3 months, knowing that I'm going to take care of you for another year at least,
I think that's brilliant. Actually, I've never heard that before. I think it's absolutely brilliant. And there's definitely, because the other thing is, man, the real marketers are made in the summer, right? You know
Yeah,
that, where it's
right.
like, it's really tough going when there's tons of buffalo just running around in Q4, and you're just riding on your horse, just grabbing everything. Like,
Yeah.
it's not
It's
that
all what we did from January to
it's
September.
exactly right.
Yeah.
It's not that it's easy, but like,
Right.
there's just I
I
never
increase budgets and just kind of watch things. Like, that's kind of it. Yeah.
I don't like the seasonality word, but like, it's real. Like,
Yeah.
I don't ever use it to my boss or the board, but
Yeah.
there's a real thing there. So I love that, man. I think it's fantastic. It's a really cool idea. And the way I see it almost is just that really big motivational boost, a kind of, I feel like my work is being acknowledged. Cause that's another thing that I was never into, because I'd pretty much been an IC my whole life. Like, I ran my own agency, but it was pretty much just me being like a fractional CMO for people. And then I had
Yeah.
permalancers. And once I got like a proper team, like team morale fucking matters. I was
So
never the
much.
trust fall guy. I was like, this is dumb. Let me just cook, dude. I'm a
Yeah.
killer. Like, and it's a real
Well,
big
and to be
thing.
fair, I think most of the like corporate team building stuff is bullshit that doesn't
100%.
help, but it's all this real stuff we're talking about of like
100%.
that can impact morale, which can create or kill momentum, and that's huge in business.
Is exactly right. And so I'll give you an example. When I was running my team at Triple Whale, because I didn't want a big team, every time we hired somebody, they got to pick whatever restaurant they wanted to take the team to in Austin. And
Nice.
obviously, like it was there was some semblance of a ceiling, but it wasn't very low, like
Yeah.
because there was only 3 to 5 people.
Right.
And it was just cool, man. It was just cool. Like, okay, cool. I'm getting on the team now. I get to pick where the team should go eat. We get to have a dinner together, like these things. And so that matters. Celebration matters. And hey, this is a really awesome job. You crushed it. Goes so far,
Yeah.
especially with high performers, because you don't really like people forget like these are humans and it's like a good job or like, but it has to be thoughtful and sincere. Like that's the one thing that really sucks is when you put a lot of work into something and your boss didn't even look at it.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to task somebody with putting their time into it, you need to put a little bit of time into it, review it, see what you think of it, and give them like candid feedback on it. And a lot of times it's going to be good feedback and that's going to land. And it really is really energizing because it feels like, oh, my teacher or my, boss or whoever actually cares about the work I'm doing, which makes
Yeah.
me care about the work I'm doing.
I love that, dude. Couple things I want to touch on from there. I think we've all had the experience of like working on a project that's super important to you. You bring it to
Mhm.
your boss, and then what you're talking about, the boss, like, yeah, fine, thanks. And it feels like shit.
Yeah.
Um, one way that like I've kind of tried to prevent that with my team, besides obviously not reacting that way, I try to set the smallest number of high value goals as possible.
Exactly right. That's exactly
So
right.
so like like the only thing we want to do is make money.
Yep.
So like profit is the goal. We track it daily.
Yep.
It's like, hey, the only goal is to make that number go up.
Yep.
And I think what that's preventing is some of these other like side quests that we can all get distracted with of like, oh, should we try to increase AOV by 10%? Or should we try to increase click-through rate on our email campaigns? And I think that kind of prevents something an employees does that matters to them that doesn't matter to me because I'm telling them, hey, I don't care what
Yep.
our AOV is. I don't care what our click-through rate is. I don't care what our ROAS is on Facebook. All I want is that number to go up. If we unlock it by increasing AOV or increasing our click-through rate, great. But I just want to make money. So let's all be focused on that one number.
I love that. And honestly, it sounds like a managing up kind of framing
Yeah.
of the problem. Because if I say, hey, I want to increase email click through rate, or hey, I want to boost AOV, you're like, shut the fuck up. I need profit.
Right. Yeah. I don't care.
Versus if I came to you and say, hey, Nate, I know profit is our North Star metric. I think we could do better on our email campaigns and increase our click through rate, therefore increasing our profit. Then you'd be like, say
Perfect.
more.
Yeah. Let's
Say
do that.
more.
Yeah.
So I think that is a managing up issue where I think you're actually doing a great job of telling people what the North Star is. You need to, or not need to, you can do whatever you want. You're a grown ass man. But what I would
No,
suggest,
this is just a free consulting call that I tricked you into thinking was a podcast. So
I'll drop my mentor pass under.
yeah.
Put me people. I need
Yeah.
sneakers.
Yeah.
What I would suggest is so right now, Rashib kind of has the same thing of like, we are not allowed to, like, happy customers is our number one North Star right now. And we're not allowed to have an event or participate in an event that a happy customer is not at. And so for you, happy customer is equivalent to profits. I don't want you to bring any initiatives that you cannot tie back to
Yeah.
boosting profit. And then that gives people a really clear lane where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, if you can't draw a direct line to this thing going up, don't hunt there. I don't care if there's deer there. That's fine.
Right.
But those aren't the deer I want.
Yeah, we
I
want
want
elk.
these profitable buffalo.
Yeah,
Yeah, I want
yeah.
the elk. I want these are the things that we're going after. And so I think it's great to have that idea. And it's really actually liberating in a weird way. Paradoxically, constraints generate creativity. Right? Like, hey
Mhm.
guys, I
Yep.
don't want you thinking about anything that isn't going to push our profit number up. Everything else is irrelevant to me. Don't come to me with it. I'm just going to give you a blanket no. But if you can either show me data or give me some sort of scientific method style thesis of like, here's how I think this is actually going to impact profit positively, let's chat. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I would handle it.
Yeah, love that. Awesome, dude. All right, last thing here so we can wrap it up. I love your quadruple framework here. Um I especially like the first note, story, making sure that the employees kind of bought into the mission, they are pumped to be here.
Yes.
Is that something you judge when you're hiring? Like, would you withhold a job offer from someone who is a killer at what they do, but you don't think they check that box of like really being bought in? Is that a problem you tackle at hiring, or is that something you kind of have to coach along the way?
Hiring.
Yeah.
And it's the CEO's job. It's not my job to get them fired up. It's my job to get them fired up to come work for me and my
Yeah.
team and like give them the pitch of like, dude, this is so cool. We work 4 days in the office. Friday's a flex day. You're going to be on a team of killers. We're not resource constrained. We're only idea and execution constrained. Like, I give them the marketing pitch, but the pitch is to get the CEO, especially for bigger hires. You need the CEO or the face of the company to get them excited. That is the CEO's job. That's not your job as a marketing leader or an org leader. Your job is to get them excited to work for you and on the team. But that story part is the pitch has to come, in my opinion, from the CEO, because it should anyways. Like, it's their
Yeah.
story, it's their book, it's their thing. And I will say, I hire on vibes. And if somebody, and candidly, all these high performers, if you have killers, they won't join. They'll be like,
Yeah.
dude, I like you. I like this. I don't believe in the product, or I don't
Sure.
believe in the story, or the CEO just doesn't excite me that much. I'm not going to go work for that guy or gal. So usually it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
True. Awesome. Cool. All right, Robert, thank you so much for coming on, man. This is my new favorite way to end interviews.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you wish I asked you? Is there anything when it comes to, building and leading highly productive and highly, relaxed and happy marketing teams that you wish we touched on today?
What did I think? No, I think the thing that was interesting is, with all my meeting hate, you didn't ask me anything about meetings, which is
All
kind of
right,
funny.
well, let's get into it. I know you got one-on-ones with everyone.
Well, I do
Um,
one-on-ones every week with direct reports, and then I could share it to your audience or whatever. But I have a structure there. Like I said, biggest win, biggest opportunity, looking forward to most, decisions or blockers needed, and then top 3 priorities for the week. So it's a really good way to non-aggressively understand where that person is valuing things, where they're putting their time, what their kind of mental space is like what they thought was a big win. Does that align with what you thought was a big win?
mhm,
What they think the biggest opportunity is? Are they seeing the field better than you? Are you? And that's not like a pejorative. You want your team,
right.
like, I have a kind of, when I hire somebody, before I let go of the reins, it's like I'll ask them, okay, here's the question we were asked. How do you think I would answer it? And once they answer it with the answer that I'm thinking of, it's like, okay, cool. The mind meld is complete.
Yeah.
Go on. But the real kicker is when they answer what you weren't thinking and it was actually a better answer. That's when you know you've hired really well. You're like, fuck, that was
Yeah.
actually even better than what I thought. Go on, son. Go
Yeah,
get it.
it's like
Go
a
get
little
it.
bit of an ego check, but I'm like, "Oh, I can probably golf more now
I
because you
could
got because you
care
got
less
this shit
about ego, baby. I
locked."
want people to
Yeah,
be smarter than me. Like, very rarely is the general ever going to be the best fighter.
right.
Never going
Yeah,
to be the best soldier. And so,
yeah,
like, you want people to, your job is to see the field at the altitude that you're at, and then be able to go down to the ground floor and then move up. And that the best leaders I know have that versatility to be on the ground versus the 10,000 foot view and move through that. Cause you don't want your directs and your other generals worried about X, Y, or Z. They need to worry about their, the desert in Africa or taking sub-Saharan Africa or whatever. But you need to worry about the whole theater, and you don't want everybody worrying about the whole theater. People need to not stay in their lane, but work on the things that they work on, kind of division of labor. So I'd say meetings. And then the other thing is a leadership meeting is fantastic. So we do something out of the EOS called an L10, and it's wonderful. It's basically structured with, so like, you have your good news and you have a company scorecard. So for your guys, your company scorecard would probably be like leading metrics to profit and then profit. Then you have your rock reviews. So your rocks are kind of a similar like OKRs. Rocks are something that you need to do or you commit to within the quarter. Excuse me. So you want, like you were saying, keep it simple, where you want 1 to 3 of those. If you have more than 3 rocks, it gets really, really weird really quick.
Yeah.
Then you have customer headlines. These can be good, bad, ugly, whatever. What are customers saying about us? And then you go through your last week's to-dos. To-dos are things that you commit to that will be done under 7 days. And then the real magic is what is called the IDS. So you identify, discuss, and solve. And so all the leadership team has the ability to add something to the IDS. And the IDS is something that is really going to impact in-quarter results. And so that way you have your leadership team, and then you conclude the meeting, you rate the meeting. But that has been transformative for me here at Fermat, where I really hate meetings. And I really like, especially when you have a leadership meeting where you can hear the burn on the call, because these are all the highest paid people at the company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you need to make sure
that hour is expensive.
It has to, so this is 90 minutes, and you start on time and you end on time. This is honestly because I do 2. I do one with our leadership team and then one with my marketing leadership. These are the only 2 meetings I'm never late for. You have to make them sacred on your calendar. Never book over them. Like, if there's extenuating circumstances, okay, yeah, you can miss one here or there, but you need that vigor around, hey, this has become sacred. Because when everybody thinks it's important, the meeting is actually useful.
Yeah.
The problem with meetings is when people don't think it's important and they're just there fucking typing away. Like, then why the fuck are you even here, dude? Like, why are we even having a meeting if nobody's engaged? That means we could do this asynchronously, or the agenda is not great or whatever. So anywho, that's my riff on meetings. I hate them, but in a leadership position, you're going to have some of them. Oh, and then the last thing I'll say about meetings, I think stand-ups are the dumbest fucking thing on the planet. I think people think that because the meeting is 15 minutes, it's not that intrusive. That is not how time works. That is not how productivity works. I'll say it louder for the people in the back. That's not how productivity works. And so I be very, very wary of, I used to work at Whole Foods, and we called them PMGers. Be very wary of professional meeting goers, where people just, there's no action. There's no, oh, that's a really cool idea, Nate. Okay, that makes.
You want to hop on and talk about it? No, I don't.
Let's go jam. Okay, cool. Let's jam next, and then you just get into this perpetual meeting loop. So I would say keep meetings as small as possible. Definitely do an L10 weekly. I enjoy one-on-ones. You could do one-on-ones asynchronously if you don't need to, and then don't do stand-ups, for the love of God. Like, what's the point of a stand-up? Do I not have the ability to communicate with you on Slack or email? I have to be in this stupid, like, don't do stand-ups. They're the most disruptive and useless meeting type, in my opinion.
Love it. And that's why I end interviews with, what do you wish we talked about?
That's good.
It's a good one, dude. Sometimes you get some of your best stuff. Yeah. Love that. Well, Rabah, dude, thank you so much for coming on. If you got that framework, we'll link it in the description. We'll link your social channels. Everyone listening, even if you're not in B2B SaaS, you can learn a ton from Rabah. I've never worked in B2B. I never want to work in B2B, but have learned a ton from you, man. And any manager, whether you work in e-com or B2B or any industry, I think that this episode is 38 minutes of gold for managing and leading people. So thank you so much for coming on, man.
No, I appreciate you, man. You're one of my favorites. And supposedly you still got the fastball, right? I saw you going by the old field, the other day, hold the record where you hit a homer or something. They took it back. So you're just a man of many layers, Nate. You're a man of many layers. But keep fighting the good fight, dude. I really love what you're doing and love your vibe, and appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, man. Talk soon.